In the NFL, the fate of a team's season can all change in an instant.
They can't stop kicking the Jets in the nards.
A team's season can essentially be over even before it truly begins. And you know what? We've already spotted 10 NFL teams that have met that exact fate thus far this season. Denver Broncos. After a disastrous start to the Russell Wilson era in 2022, the Broncos look poised to turn the page this year. And they brought in offensive guru and former Super Bowl winning coach Sean Payton, who folks in and around the league believed could revitalize Wilson's career. Unfortunately for the fans in the Mile High City, things, frankly, could not have gone any worse thus far. The Broncos have started the season 0-2 and done so in horrendous fashion. Week 1, against a division rival, the Las Vegas Raiders, Denver got off to a great start. Wilson looked sharp in the first half, completing nearly all of his passes and notching 2 touchdowns. But for whatever reason, the team seemed to take its foot off the gas and they ended up squandering a halftime lead, losing by a final of 17-16. And as gutting as that was, the Broncos still had enough talent on that roster to survive the season. Well, at least they did. Before they upped the ante and blew a 21-3 lead against the Washington Commanders in Week 2 in the most gutting fashion imaginable. You see, after blowing the lead, Denver came all the way back and scored on a 50-yard touchdown pass from Wilson with time expiring to pull within 2 points, only to fail on the 2-point conversion to force overtime. So with 2 losses of this magnitude to start off the year, Denver's season is as good as finished. Houston Texans. Hey, who here remembers David Carr? No, not Derek Carr, David Carr. Derek's older brother, who was a first overall pick of the Houston Texans way back in 2002, Houston's inaugural season. Well, for anyone who doesn't remember David Carr, that's probably because the former Fresno State standout didn't exactly live up to the billing of a #1 overall pick. But you know, that wasn't entirely his fault. After all, he was slotted straight into one of the worst starting lineups the league has ever seen, and to make matters worse, the Texans' offensive line was far and away its weakest of many weaknesses, for lack of a better term. So, why am I bringing all this up? Well, the Texans' rookie quarterback this year, CJ Stroud, who they took 2nd overall in this past draft, has already been sacked 11 times, meaning he is on pace to blow Carr's dubious record out of the water. Now, to his credit, Stroud has looked a lot better than Carr did in stretches, but with this comparison in mind, there's no denying that the Texans' season has gotten off to a terrible start. Houston is 0-2 after getting thoroughly dominated by the Baltimore Ravens in Week 1 and the lowly Indianapolis Colts in Week 2. Yeah, this has all the makings of another long season in H-Town. From where I'm sitting, this season's already over. Honestly, all that Texans fans can hope for is that Stroud continues to develop and doesn't get beaten into submission like Carr once did. Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals were surprisingly competitive during Week 1 against the Washington Commanders, despite having their franchise quarterback Kyler Murray still sidelined with a torn ACL, and a new head coach in Jonathan Gannon calling the shots. So understandably, expectations were pretty low heading into the season. I mean, Joshua Dobbs is a serviceable journeyman, but not exactly a guy who inspires Super Bowl aspirations when you have him as your starting quarterback. Arizona did, however, have fans on the edge of their seat Week 2 against the Giants, thinking that maybe this Cardinals team could make some noise. Arizona went up 20-0 at halftime and even answered the Giants' first score with a quick touchdown and a 2-point conversion in response, all to take a 21-point lead. That euphoria, however, was short-lived. Arizona squandered the lead and lost the game in the closing seconds on a Graham Gano 34-yard field goal that pushed New York ahead 31-28. And just like that, the small sliver of hope that had emerged quickly vanished. And with it, the card season is officially, well, unofficially over. Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears were one of the most talked about teams during this offseason. Everything looked like it was ready to come up Chicago. They tanked in the best way possible during 2022, got the #1 overall pick, saw their quarterback Justin Fields developing right before their very eyes, and made a few strategic offseason moves, including trading that aforementioned #1 pick to really set themselves up for a nice run while Fields was still under a relatively affordable rookie contract. There was just one minor detail that we all all seem to forget in the excitement, and that's, well, it's still the Chicago Bears we're talking about. And yeah, they are already imploding in true Chicago Bears fashion. Fields looks like he's regressing, they have one of the worst defenses in the league, and there are already rumors of discontent swirling around that locker room. But when you lose your season opener at home in empathetic fashion to an Aaron Rodgers-less Packers team and then get beat by Baker Mayfield and the Bucs in week 2, yeah, none of that should really come as much of a surprise. After all, this is the Bears we're talking about, Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings were everyone's favorite team to hate on in 2022 because despite notching a 13-4 record, they seemed to exclusively win coin flip games, and everyone and their mother was just convinced that the team itself was only as good as it was lucky. Alright, well, fast forward to 2023, and we are starting to see that luck turn around and this team come right back to earth, as all of its flaws have continually been exposed. They lost to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that was supposed to be in contention for the first overall pick in the upcoming draft week 1. Then they were bullied by the Eagles on Thursday Night Football in week 2. The defense has more holes than Swiss cheese, and perhaps even more concerning, their offensive line has just struggled to protect Kirk Cousins, who's a quarterback that absolutely needs all the protection he can get. Minnesota will still likely win a few games in the coming weeks. Heck, they have the Chargers and Panthers coming, which are both extremely winnable. But I think it's safe to say that they aren't going to come close to hitting the expectations that they had for themselves coming into the season. Not that anyone should be surprised. New England Patriots. Come on. Let's face it, while Bill Belichick is still rightfully regarded as one of, if not the best coach in NFL history, these are not your daddy's New England Patriots. After watching how the team as a whole and its quarterback, Mac Jones, have played to start the year, well, this season feels like it's going to be another lost one in the post-Tom Brady era. The Pats started off the year on a relatively decent note with a hard-fought loss to the reigning NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles. Though I'm sure the fact that we're even talking about moral victories for the New England Patriots is nauseating to their fan base. But hey, that's the reality of where we're at with this team. Look, I think we all just gotta accept that the days of winning the AFC East and being Super Bowl or bust are now over. They're now just a team that has to celebrate moral victories, kind of like they did after week 1. And, well, that is more than they can say for their week 2 showing against fellow AFC East member, the Miami Dolphins. This is not the Tom Brady Patriots. This is the Mac Jones Patriots, who should not and frankly cannot be in the business of staging double-digit comebacks. Hey, sorry Patriots Nation, but this season is over. Indianapolis Colts. Now, the Indianapolis Colts bounced back from a tough season-opening loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars, doing quite nicely in Week 2 against an admittedly terrible Texans team. The 31-20 victory was not, however, without setbacks. The dynamic rookie quarterback, Anthony Richardson, was sidelined during this one with a concussion, something that should be extremely disconcerting to the team and its fans considering how early it is in the season and his career. Not to mention the fact that running the football is kind of a big part of his game. Luckily, the Colts were able to rally behind one of the best backup quarterbacks in the game, Gardner Minshew, but, you know, even so, we've seen how this story plays out. Minshew comes in and wins a couple of games early, then the other defensive coordinators around the league wise up and target weaknesses, and it all just comes unraveled. Now, it isn't like Indy was looking particularly geared up for a Super Bowl run this year anyway. So, yeah, at this point, with the way that the team is looking and with Richardson sidelined, I think it's fairly safe to say that their season is finished. New York Jets. While it was impressive to see the Jets rally to win their Week 1 matchup with the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football after the deflating, almost immediate injury to Aaron Rodgers, the fact of the matter is that this team is going nowhere with Zach Wilson under center. That might be a tough pill for Jets fans to swallow. I mean, after all, they spent an entire offseason getting worked up into a fervor over the excitement of having a future Hall of Fame under center to complement the rest of that talented young core, but I think it's time to face facts. Zach Wilson is a terrible quarterback.
Like, why throw it in the track? That don't make sense.
And the Jets do not have any better options internally. Look, sad to say, but this Jets season is looking primed to go like many of the ones that came before it. Yeah, stick a fork in them, New York is done. Seattle Seahawks. After their shocking loss to the Los Angeles Rams in Week 1, there were a lot of people in and around the league ready to call the Seahawks and their Cinderella-esque run in 2022 a fraud. But after their comeback win against the Lions in Week 2, that tune sure has quieted quickly. Everywhere except on TPS here, where we are still pretty dang confident that this Seahawks team season is kaput. Come on, let's all be honest for a minute. They were lucky that Detroit's defense completely fell apart down the stretch of that game. And the reality is that their water level is much closer to the team that lost 30-13 to the Rams and went down early to the Lions, rather than the team that we saw come storming back to win that game in overtime. Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers are another team that didn't exactly enter the season with serious ambitions to win the Lombardi Trophy. Granted, they play in the NFC South, an extremely winnable division, but even if they lucked into a playoff berth, I don't think they'd have many backers in Vegas picking them to go all the way. And well, after that pitiful performance they had Week 1 against the Atlanta Falcons, in which they mustered up just 10 points and got run all over, I think it's safe to say that that assessment will ring true. Bryce Young, the #1 overall pick in this year's past draft, did not look exactly great. And the team's big offseason acquisition, former Eagles running back Miles Sanders, wasn't overly explosive by any means, netting 72 yards on 18 carries in this loss. Look, the fact of the matter is this Panthers team is not good. And at this point, I think it's pretty safe to assume that their season is as good as finished. But which NFL team season do you think is most over already? What do you think we're wrong on? Is there anyone that we may have missed here? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.